Well, you know, they talk a lot about winning the press conference, but in my experience, the coach almost always wins the press conference as far as winning over fans and convincing, convincing people to get on board. And in this case, you know, he's a head coach. He said all the right things. He talked about Tennessee's tradition. He talked about being a player's coach in a certain sense, and the importance of family to the way he runs his program. I think he did a good job of kind of diffusing some of the concern about his exit from Cincinnati, talking about the way the players cheered him as he was leaving. And he talked, about building relationships with the players here at Tennessee. He said he was familiar with a lot of them through the recruiting process, through scouting the team a year and a half ago when they played here, so that he's not coming in here blank, that he knows a lot of the guys here. So I think it was a good first press conference, and they usually are. I think usually any concerns that come in beforehand are allayed pretty quickly, and at the end of the day, he's going to be judged by wins and losses just like any other coach. He met with players here just about an hour before he met with media, and generally the feedback seemed pretty positive. The fact is, he seems like a high-energy, excitable guy. It seemed like the players really enjoyed that, liked that. And from everything I've heard from people in Cincinnati, he had good relationships with players there. So I think there was a level of excitement. But again, that's not unusual when a new coach comes in. I think a lot of players like the idea of getting a clean slate, and especially, after 3 losing seasons, I think there's a hunger for something different and something new, and that's what he promises right now. It's interesting that there was, I think, so much skepticism about his hire versus all the enthusiasm about the potential hire of Charlie Strong, in that they have almost identical recent career resumes. They have very similar records over the last 3 years in 2 universities, Cincinnati and Louisville, that are very similar universities within the same conference, the Big East. So they have similar track records. I think the difference was that Charlie Strong had an SEC background, and I think that's where the biggest fears were externally about Butch Jones' lack of a Southern background. And I think he did his best to kind of combat that today in the press conference. I think he is going to look for recruiters who do have some sort of links here and some ties to Tennessee or the SEC, even though he didn't say that explicitly. I think that's going to be a goal in building his staff. And, the fact is, he does have head coaching experience in 2 different schools, which is more than a lot of the candidates do coming into the Southeastern Conference. He has successful track record in 2 different schools. And so, just the fact that it came outside the region, I think there's some concern. But, the fact is he does have that head coaching background. And he's an offensive guy. All his background's on offense. He was a position coach and then a coordinator on offense. He runs a kind of an up-tempo, no-huddle type offense, not totally unfamiliar to what Tennessee did last year. He doesn't like to call it a spread, although most people seem to call it a spread. So that might be a matter of semantics. But it's certainly up-tempo, high-speed, no-huddle, and that's what we can expect to see on offense. I think the 2 things that people are going to be watching for in the next, really up until signing day, is how he finishes strong on this recruiting class and how he builds his staff. I think that's an important component into winning over the fan base. I mean, he made some big promises about building his staff. He said it's going to be not just the best staff in the SEC, but the best in the country. I think he's going to have the budget to go out there and chase some higher profile coaches to add to the staff. So it's going to be interesting to see how he manages that, taking a mixture of guys that are on his current staff at Cincinnati. I would guess no more than 4 or 5 at the very most, and probably less than that, although that remains to be seen. And then perhaps looking at some of the guys here on Tennessee's staff, I probably wouldn't expect more than 1 or 2, again, just because that's usually the way it works in coaching transitions. And then the remainder of spots going out there nationally with a lot of money and trying to lure the best assistants. So I think if he puts together a solid staff, that'll go a long way into winning over the fan base, and then the recruiting as well. I mean, Tennessee's recruiting class was not especially strong, and then you have the very serious Derek Dooley job rumors starting about midway through the season, and they were at best trying to hold together the class that they had. They couldn't really do much with all the rumors about Dooley and such. So he's got to basically rebuild a class and maybe find some surprises towards the end. And if he throws in a couple big names and shows that he's aggressive and enthusiastic on the recruiting trail and hires assistants who do the same, I think that would be something he could do to win people over in the next 2 months. I think the search was kind of hamstrung for the start in the terms of public perception, because at least among the Tennessee fan base there was this expectation of John Gruden or no one else. And I think, if you were looking at this through the lens of a more traditional coaching search, it actually was a pretty normal coaching search, if you want to call it that, in the sense that they did identify a group of candidates. They went after their highest profile name, their biggest names first. They made their pitches to at least 2 guys that we know that probably received offers, or one that we know that did receive an offer, and the second that probably did in Mike Gundy, the other being Charlie Strong, of course, and that was a very public rejection. And I think, again, because it was a public rejection, that some fans maybe were embarrassed by it or something like that. But that's another thing that happens, fairly routinely in coaching searches. And so I think Dave Hart had the best way of saying it is, you identify a guy, you offer him, he either says yes and you've got your coach, and you say no or you move on. And Butch Jones is a guy that, listen, he was among the highest profile coaches out there on the job market this offseason. He had interviewed with Kentucky, Purdue, Colorado, so it's not like he was a guy that came out of left field. It was just a matter of expectations were set at an extraordinarily high level, John Gruden, Nick Saban type level, and I think nationally speaking, most people are viewing this hire as a pretty darn good hire. It's just locally the expectations maybe were a bit higher than that. I thought Dave Hart, much like he was in the press conference when he fired Derek Dooley, I think he was very frank, very honest, very very candid about how the search went. It wasn't 100% transparent. He didn't name every name, but someone asked him a direct question about John Gruden. He gave a direct answer. Someone asked him, how many coaches did you talk to? He said he talked to 4 seriously. And I didn't name all 4 of them, but that's a level of frankness that you don't always get. So I was impressed with that. And, like I said, I think Butch Jones said the right things. And, I think, he's been through this road before. He knows how it works. He's a football coach. This is what he's paid to do, to motivate people and to win people over. And, I think he accomplished that.